Ladies and gentlemen, you might not realize it, but we are exiting the greatest era in sports history. Granted, sports haven't been around for that long, but I'd say roughly 2010 through the early 2020s was the era where greatness was redefined in damn near every sport except for baseball and hockey. Tennis saw the three greatest ever in Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer trade grand slams like lunchtime snacks in grade school, along with Serena Williams dominating the women's game. American football saw the quarterback position take its place at the top of the athletic social hierarchy. Bill Walsh's visions finally came to their final form as Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, and subsequently Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson took football to the next level. Basketball saw an era spearheaded by LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and perhaps most impactfully Stephen Curry to lead the greatest scoring boom in modern sports history. Soccer saw Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo be so much greater for so much longer than any players before them that they genuinely wrecked the curve for every great player to follow them. It was a glorious period.
And now it's all over.
So I want to put tennis to the side for a moment because it's actually doing the best job of surviving the kind of GOAT regression that all these other sports are going through, with Alcaraz and Sinner immediately hitting the scene and taking off running in replacement of Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal. For this video's purposes, I want to focus on football, American football, soccer, and basketball. And it's worth noting, right from the top, that the regressions these sports are going through are both natural and a result of them reaching the absolute heights of entertainment. These are not criticisms of coaching and player practices, although perhaps there is room for that. What we are going to go through now in these three sports was not only predictable but inevitable, and they haven't come with a lack of talent either. Humans continue to evolve and sports continue to become more lucrative, meaning better and better athletes keep entering the sports world. While it may feel like we smacked our heads on the ceiling from 2010 to about 2022, if we've learned one thing, it's not to put a cap on what athletes can create. Anyway, let's get started with the global sport, soccer. The soccer problem for me is twofold. The first part is a theory of mine that I'll put forward in a second, and the second part is, of course, some good old-fashioned tactical evolution in the game. My theory is that Messi and Ronaldo were so much better than anyone had ever seen and shared the stage for so long that lesser players were simply held to a higher standard. Think of the goal output players like Robert Lewandowski, Luis Suarez, Harry Kane, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Before 2008, and of course today, these guys would have been the best goal scorers in the world. And to be fair, Kane and Lewandowski still are up there. In the 2010s, these guys were putting up 30 to 40 goal seasons in the league alone, and it was an afterthought because of Messi and Ronaldo's numbers. I'm not even mentioning the wingers involved in this discussion. Imagine the damage Prime Neymar, Arjen Robben, or Eden Hazard could do today, and their numbers were nothing compared to the guys I previously mentioned. So that's one thing. We don't have the transcendent players breaking through the ceiling of what's possible anymore. We're back in the 2000s a little bit. Kylian Mbappe is your new Thierry Henry, Lamine Yamal your new Ronaldinho, etc. Now for the more technical side. The team still widely considered the best club side to ever lace them up is Barcelona from about 2009 to 2011. In that time they won everything there is to win more than once and played the most attractive style of possession football possible, as they spread out opponents as far as possible in a 4-3-3 formation, with wingers hugging the touchline, allowing space in the middle of the pitch for Messi and his buddies, Xavi, Andres Iniesta, and Sergio Busquets, to play what is known as tiki-taka football. This team was managed by Pep Guardiola, and their style of football took over the world. Everyone wanted to play 4-3-3, total football, possession playing out of the back. Some did it better than others. Pep took his 4-3-3 possession favoring style to Germany for a few years with Bayern Munich before landing in Manchester a decade ago to take Manchester City to the next level, and predictably has seen an unprecedented run of success with City. However, if there was one team that gave his City side troubles in the late 2010s when goal scoring reached its absolute peak in Europe, it was Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. Why? Liverpool had the ability to play possession like City, but prioritized winning the ball back from City high up the pitch as they attempted to play out from the back. Liverpool's success against City on this front led to Pep gradually adding more of this pressing style to his City team, and doing so successfully. The world took note once again. However, there were consequences. The game became much less about creating space to play creatively like it was when Pep was at Barcelona and in his early days at City. Suddenly the game was about positional discipline, winning without the ball. This wasn't really Klopp's vision either at Liverpool, and the reality is that the Liverpool-Manchester City wars that were waged in the late 2010s and early 2020s were probably the height of entertaining football, maybe in the game's history, as Klopp called it, rock and roll football. But as the world has followed suit with pressing as they once did with tiki-taka, less attractive football is now being played. The emphasis on positional discipline is leading to fewer and fewer imaginative players in the sport. Similar to basketball, the game is now much more about who can cover more ground rather than who can have a moment of artistic genius. Players are more risk-averse, a theme that's going to pop up throughout this video. If there was an inflection point, it was the moments when Liverpool overwhelmed a seemingly unbeatable Manchester City team. City didn't stop winning, but teams took note of how to crack possession-based formula that had led to the great goal-scoring boom. And that leads us to where we are today. Okay, over to American football.
The NFL saw its scoring boom peak in the late 2010s and early 2020s, really culminating with Patrick Mahomes becoming the face of the league, taking that mantle from Tom Brady, and playing probably the most exciting style of American football we have seen, at least up until 2022.
As I stated before, the previous generation of Brady, Rodgers, Manning, Breeze, etc. cemented football as a passing game. Then Mahomes, a RoboCop type of thrower of the football, took it to the point where defenses had to give up the run. For the unfamiliar, early Patrick Mahomes was the greatest big play threat the game has ever seen. He took the play extending ability of a Michael Vick or Randall Cunningham, kept it behind the line of scrimmage, and used his Rodgers-like arm talent to find a speedster downfield to break a game open seconds after the play should have been over and would have been over for most other quarterbacks. Every team, not named the 49ers or Ravens, had already built themselves into a pass priority offense in the 2010s, and Mahomes represented the trend at its highest level, its most unstoppable. Similar to how Manchester City were at their most unstoppable when they ran into Klopp's Liverpool, it took Mahomes' Chiefs getting to this never-before-seen level of big play potential for the rest of the league to look around and say, okay, no more deep passing. The example no one will soon forget was the 2021 AFC divisional round, Chiefs versus Bills, the greatest game of a generation. Mahomes traded rapid-fire touchdown drives with the man tapped to be the next in the order of alien quarterbacks, Josh Allen. As we all know, the Chiefs won in overtime after a 13-second drive to get into field goal range to tie it. Anyway, this game represented the absolute peak for downfield passing. It couldn't get any better. The quarterbacks couldn't possibly be more physically impressive. No defense that prioritized stopping the run above all else, as was standard practice for the history of football, could hope to stop them. So 2022 rolled around. The Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill away and were still awesome, just like Manchester City were still awesome after getting market corrected. But something changed. Teams were selling out to stop big passing plays, committing bodies to put a lid on the defense, and opening up the intermediate passing game, and of course, the run game. Fast forward a few years, and we are now back to the characteristics of the early 2010s in football, just like in soccer. Running backs are the focal points of many offenses again. The teams with the best defenses are the class of the league, and interestingly enough, quarterback stats are now homogenized. It simply isn't enough to look at yards and touchdown to interception ratio to determine who the best quarterback is, because defenses are forcing them all to play a certain kind of way. Anyway, now that defense and running games have dominated for a few years, it'll be interesting to see the offensive response. Okay, now for basketball. Well, you knew this was coming. The common thread of this video is, here in the 2020s, we have seen a return to the sports trend of the 2000s and before, just modernized versions. Running the ball is back in American football, clean sheets and set pieces are back in soccer. These things were still important in their respective scoring booms in the 2010s and 2020s, and it's not like football games today look like 2000s football games when you turn them on. Same goes for soccer. It's a constant push and pull with emphasis on what is working right now.
The passing game revolution was massive in football, as was the revelation that was total football making its way throughout European soccer, but maybe there has been no in-game innovation quite like the three-point shot in basketball.
Just as we had our soccer entertainment peak with Manchester City, Liverpool, and our football peak with Chiefs, Bills, our inflection point in basketball has to involve the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Oddly enough, between Liverpool, Man City, Chiefs, Bills, and Warriors, Cavs, all three of our stylistic inflection points featured a red team and a blue team. Worth noting, I guess, maybe something symbolic about it, I don't know. Anyway, we all know Golden State changed the game. Steph Curry has actually said that they based Steve Kerr's basketball philosophy partly on Barcelona's tiki-taka style, where this video started. These things are all linked after all. So suddenly, everyone wanted to run small ball lineups after the Warriors got good. The mid-range shot died, as did the power forward position that dominated the 2000s and early 2010s, with Kevin Garnett, Dirk Nowitzki, arguably Tim Duncan, hell, even Blake Griffin and Twitter legend Zach Randolph, dead for a solid decade, dead. Now turn on an Oklahoma City Thunder game. Two big men.
New York Knicks, relying on two big men. Cavs, two bigs. Rockets, two bigs. The game is changing again, folks. Offensive rebounding is back. Now, of course, we're not Neanderthals. If you have two bigs out there on the floor, at least one of them should be able to shoot the three. And teams are still jacking threes like crazy. That hasn't changed, but think back to those Cavs-Warriors series from 2015 to 2018, where it was small ball lineup after small ball lineup. The 2010s came around and suddenly, Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid are bringing back the big man. Gotta guard them, right? And now we're seeing the double big come back. Brings a tear to my eye. But with all these changes has come a stylistic revolution. Offensive rebounding is by no means sexy. Foul baiting is at an all-time high, as it is pretty much a rite of passage for any guard to figure out how to live at the line in this league. Fewer dunks, fewer slashers. I want to see Anthony Edwards try to posterize someone once a night. Instead, he led the league in three-point attempts last year. And good for him for doing it, but you see what I mean? Do you see the whole point of this video?
I think what I want to get across here is that the scoring boom, greater talent, greater money in the game, plus analytics led to points in these sports being manufactured rather than created out of thin air. And it's kind of taken away from the artistic nature of these sports that we really go to feel something.
While there are still moments of brilliance in these sports, we aren't seeing them nearly as often as we did in the last decade. And for me, as a sports consumer, that is sad. The greatness of a team is often defined by how little they can risk on a given possession. Respectfully, I want to see the best athletes in the world risk everything, to quote an iconic 2014 Nike World Cup commercial. So hopefully as we work through this period of relative monotony and groupthink in sports, the next time I do a video about tactical trends across sports, it's because some Messi, Mahomes, or Curry-like figure has captivated our imaginations once again. Until then, I'll see you next week.